All right. Good evening, platform viewers. We have a special treat tonight. None other than my own pastor, Pastor in District L. Clinton, is our guest tonight as we delve into the topic of fatherhood, leadership, and legacy. And I will, in full disclosure, Anderson Cooper, one of my favorite anchors on CNN, he broadcasted a discussion with President Barack Obama, and that was the same title. And as I thought about it and pondered about it, and tried, I was like, I'm trying to find up with another title, another way to try to spin it. But the more I tried to look at it and really think about the essence of fatherhood is to think about leadership and legacy. So hopefully Anderson Cooper and CNN can forgive me, but I thought it was wonderful. So tonight we have again a man who I admire and respect to share on this platform with you all viewers. So I don't want to, belabor the point and make it slow down our guests from being able, our guests of honor, to be able to speak. But I wanted to first just open up and just thinking about fatherhood broadly before we kind of dive into more personal questions and thinking about fatherhood broadly. What would you say, Pastor, fatherhood or the state of fatherhood is today in the 21st century here in America, if you just want to speak from your perspective here where we reside?
Well, I want first of all wanted to say thank you for having me to be on this uh, set, the platform. I am elated and honored to be here. This is a wonderful program that you have been um, taking to the public, and I am encouraged by your leadership here in this area. I am so thankful that I can call you my daughter, and it's just right on topic because when you talk about fatherhood doesn't necessarily has to do with the child gave that you gave life. But fatherhood is that state of where you become a father or is viewed as a father figure. And God knows we need fathers. We need father figures. We need fathers in the homes. We need fathers in our community. We need those role models, those people who have taken on the responsibility to protect, to provide, and also to care for. Um, and it's a special place for a father to lead in that area, and that's the key word there: lead in protecting, lead in providing, and lead in taking care of our children.
Absolutely. So, given that really is a declaration, a call to arms of what fathers should do and be to their own family, as well as in a way, an extended community. Where do you think the state of fatherhood is right now? Are we? I guess it depends. I know it's a broad question, but if you want to think of it from the lens of a person of color, if you want to look as living now, in these millennial times,
Right.
what do you think the state of fatherhood is now, as in compared to what you envision or what you was brought up under?
Yeah. Well, I must truly say that uh, times have changed, and we have the millennials, we have all the different groups, we have the generation X. We have just all these evolution that has happened in our nation and the world. Speaking from being here in the U.S., one of the things that I know for a fact is that the father, the black father, has always had a bad rap. but I must say that I know many fathers who are of color who are stepping up to the plate, young men stepping up to the plate to be the best father that they can, to provide in spite of their challenges, with some may be systematic and some just may be, because of poverty. But they're still stepping up to the plate, and there are many single dads that I know. I was one of them for a while, who raised their children and take good care of their children. So I would say the state of fatherhood in the Black community, for one, is doing better than ever. It's doing better than ever. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Just as fathers are not perfect, that state is not. The state of fatherhood is not perfect, but I believe it is evolving and is getting to that place where men are realizing that there's a way to be a father even if you're not in that household. We don't encourage fathers not being in the house, but too often that is the situation, and somebody tunes out, and because of whatever struggles they tune out. But we're seeing now where there is education, there is nurturing, there's encouragement for young men to be a part of their child's life and be the best father that they can be given the situation. You don't, not because you're not in that household means that you still don't have responsibility. And that's the key word there, responsibility, that we're taking care of our responsibilities, whether we're in the home or not.
Mhm. And and I think that's well said. I think it's well said. And for those platform viewers who are just joining us, this evening we're talking about fatherhood, leadership, and legacy. And we have a special guest, District Elder Pastor Jerome McClellan, joining us as we unpack this huge, huge topic of what fatherhood is in relationship to leadership and also leaving a lasting legacy. So, as usual, in platform style, please join our conversation, chats, and comments. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And just going back to our discussion, so,
Yes.
Pastor, what
Yes.
exactly makes a man a father?
Well, again, it goes back to his God-given right, that God, the way God made you. God, God made man after his own image, and men are able to father children, and we all know the biological way, how this is done. Bless God.
Mhm.
So it's anybody can bring a child into the world. Any man can father a child, to bring a child into the world. But when it comes to being that father that we're talking about, the essence of fatherhood, it's not just providing the life, but what happens after that child has been given life, that you're there to provide for that child, to nurture that child, and to also to protect that child. Fathers are known for protection. When daddy's home, it feels as though everything else is fine. Everything is going to be okay. When you can have a view of your father, when you can have an understanding of your father, it's almost like you understand yourself through who your father is, who he was. So it when you start to influence your environment, those that are looking up to you, those that are under your care. When a child looks and says and calls you father or calls you dad, that means so much. And we have men who are stepping into homes who they have children, but those children are not their biological children, but those
Mhm.
children call them dad, and sees them as a father figure in their life because of what he brings to the table. First of all, he has stabilized the home. He has brought protection to the home. He has brought caring for the home, and he is providing for that home. So those are important things. It's how you're viewed by those who you provide for and protect.
And absolutely. And when I even think about my own personal experience and thinking about just the essence of a father, just their presence
Yeah.
alone make you want to just
Yes.
straighten up. You know,
Yes.
mom, I hate to say this, moms, you know we love you. But you know, moms didn't quite show the fear in you as dads did. You
Uh,
know, dads be like, ooh, straighten up. You know, it's no time for games.
right.
Daddy is around and it's time to act right. And I think that even though it doesn't feel good as a child to
Yes.
feel that, I do think in the long run it's important. And that
Very
piece
important.
is so key. It's
Yes.
very key. And I can speak from experience when you're trying to balance the of a woman and being a wife and a mother and bringing that to the table. The counter to that, the other side of that is what the fathers bring to the table. And
Yeah.
it's very, and I think it's good that you brought up earlier that, you know, there may be men who are in a place of father, even for not their biological children, but their role is
Yes.
just as important. It's just as
Just as
important.
important. Yes.
So, in asking, so what skills do you think a man should possess for him to be a good father? What skills?
The number one skill you can a father should have, first of all, is to be a provider. A provider. That's a great skill, because if you think of a child cannot provide for themselves. So fathers must provide. And when we talk about skills of providing, you know, that is defined by the man, what his ambitions are, what his aspirations are. But being able to be a provider, a good provider, is a skill. And it's a good skill set for men to have. The other part of that is just like we mentioned before, the skill of being a good protector, a good protector. So you have to develop your mindset to be a protector over those who you provide for. And again, going back to the definition of a father, of also being that person who cares. So he should have skills that shows that he cares. He's an expert at caring for those who are under his protection. you know Sometimes we can pull for all these other skills, but if you have those three, just having that heart to care, having the heart to provide, and the will to do it, it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference.
Yes. And, you know, thanks for sharing that because I think those three things that you mentioned, being a provider, being a
Yes.
protector, and having I'm trying to imagine
Yes.
now, men, if I'm wrong, you know, I want to hear from you. But I'm trying to, if you've never been a father, or if you haven't had an example of father where you've, you know, raised around all women, single parent home and female led, what is that? Are you able to unpack that a little bit? I think the provider seems a little more straightforward and a protector, but a heart to care may be like, what does that really mean? Do you
Oh
mind
yeah.
unpacking those things a little bit more?
Oh sure. I learned from my dad. I learned from my dad that skill to care for. I remember as a child, I was the youngest of the household, and my dad, he never would go away and return home without some kind of treat for me. And that was our thing, where he would come home and he would always have a treat for me. And so many times when dad would leave the house, for the day, and he's coming back in the evening, I always was there looking, and I was looking for dad and I knew he had a treat for me. you know. And as soon as he came, even if he didn't have it in his hand, at some point it would show up. It's like, hey, I have this for you. And my dad and I, we had times where, he would just take me for a ride, and we would end up somewhere, and for some reason my dad had a knack for seafood, and it would be stuff like, squid. It would be stuff like
Oh, wow.
shark meat. It's all this exotic stuff that he always. We'd end up at these places where we're having like some turtle soup, and I remember those times with my dad, and it was just a caring thing that he would allow me to experience that side of him. And I really appreciate that side of him. He was a very caring man, and cared for his children, cared for us like none other. And I'll
Mhm.
never forget the memories of my dad. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I really think that's such a sweet memory to share, because I think sometimes even as parents, you don't realize how those small things make such a large or a great impact on your children. And I can, even thinking about my own dad, things that he did, that really, made an impact, and I'll never forget. And some wonderful things there. And I think also, fathers have that ability to kind of call you up, to speak to to the chest of a man, to the heart of a little
Right.
girl, and say, yes, you can do it. I'm gonna
Yes, you
raise
can.
that bar. And that's something father can kind of pull up and pull out of you.
Yes.
I don't know. Does that sound kind of familiar to you at all, Pastor?
Oh, yes, it does. Fathers, I mean, he has a vision for his family. The father has a vision for his family and his children. There are things that he sees in them, and he's going to lead them to. I remember, I have one of my siblings, one of my brothers. I remember he was just doing his thing as that young boys do. He wants to do what he wants to do, but dad took him, and dad took him to a mechanic shop at a young age, and to learn a trade. Today that brother is a master mechanic. He's GM certified, and can get a job in any GM factory. Thanks to dad. Dad just seen something that he hadn't seen, and just took him to that direction. If I look at my own life, I remember excursions that my dad would encourage me to be on. He thought that the more I see of the world, and the more I experienced others, and have that build up my social skills, it would help me in the future. And today I'm a pastor. So many of my social skills are learned from my dad, the way he
Uh-huh.
treated people, the way he approached situations, and his skill in
Mhm.
reaching and touching people.
Okay. And you know what? And as before we dive into the next question, I want to make sure I'm acknowledging our viewers. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm here speaking with District Elder Pat McClennan, and we're talking about fatherhood leadership. And those of viewers who are already chatting in your comments, I appreciate it. You're adding to the station. Those just joining us, we certainly want to hear. And I think to kind of take this conversation to even deeper depths, I think
Okay.
about, are the question, are girls or boys harder to raise? What do you think?
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. I came from a home where we had the boys and the girls, and The
Uh-huh.
girls, they brought it, man. They brought it, but the guys also brought it too. And dad was that person in the middle, you know, and he taught his boys, listen, you treat these young ladies, the way you want others to treat them outside. He was a stickler for that. He was like, no, these are your sisters, but they're also ladies, and you've got to treat them
Mhm.
like ladies. And so, the girls, they took advantage of that, you know, and they always try to get over on us. But yeah, if dad knew that we were mistreating any of them or saying anything mean, he would get us. It's like, no, treat your sisters how you want they to be treated when they go out. It's important for the father in the home. And as far as raising girls, I don't have a daughter. I have goddaughters, but and
Mhm.
many daughters in the Lord. But
Mhm.
I remember, when I was young in ministry. Uh, now I wasn't the only single father on the ministerial team where I accepted my calling, but I had another minister, brother, co-laborer, and he was the single father of a daughter. And I always said to him, I said, man, how do you do it? We both had children. I had a boy, he had a daughter. And I said, listen, I thank God I have a son because I don't have to deal with those girl issues, you know? Uh, and, and he was like, oh man, so it comes with the territory. And I think fathers adopt because there are many fathers out there, who they may be single fathers to daughters, but many of them have daughters and they have sons. But I believe a daughter is drawn to her father, and she's that man in her life that she knows at an early age and looks up to. And he's going to teach her how a man should treat a lady, how he should treat her, and the things that she should accept and not accept. You know, I believe it's important also for a daughter to learn how her father loves her and how he shows her, how he protects her, and how he provides for her. And sometimes you may call a young lady high maintenance, but she may be high maintenance to you, but to her dad, it's just him taking care of her, what she deserves,
Mhm.
because he loves her.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can, you know, before we dive into one of your questions, I really think is important to lift up. Dads do have a special place for
Yeah.
girls. I
Yes.
don't have any sons, and I'm not a dad, so I can't really speak to that. But I can, from lived experience as a daughter, dads can really, they really send this for their girls, and I know for myself, I my dad was a jack of all trades. So he knew what to do with cars. He knew if something went down in the house, he knew how to fix it. He knew how to build.
Yeah.
He worked for the government, and so he was, you know, educated, intelligent, had a decent job, but he also had
Yeah.
other skills that he can use with his hands. So as I got gotten older, and then when I was married, there were certain things I was expecting, like, what do you mean you don't know how to do this? Like, so I gotta call a mechanic, I gotta call somebody. So it was,
Right.
that was the standard that was set for me, and
Yeah.
it was hard
Yeah.
for me. It's feel a little disturbing a little bit when they're like, a man can't, you can't put something together. Like, what do you mean? You got to
Well,
call somebody else.
yeah. Well,
But
may I say something?
yes,
Yeah,
please.
because although I can tell you that being a father, whether it's a boy or a girl, it almost takes the same tools, the same skill sets, because the same skill sets work for whether you have a daughter or a son.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be caring for that child, you know, and boys kind of respond differently, and girls also respond differently to the
Mm-hmm.
caring, the providing, and the protecting. For the son, the father is teaching him, how to lead his household. And for the daughter, the father is teaching her, what to expect, what the standard is, and to hold up that standard. And also, the young man should hold that standard up of his fathers too. So,
Absolutely. And
it,
I think,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, were you going?
No, go ahead. He's good. I'm done.
Yes, yes. So the viewer said, taking it from a girl's perspective, when the father is absent in a girl's life, sometimes the girl is easily influenced by men around her because she's looking for a father figure in those men. Ooh, wow. You have
Yeah.
any thoughts to that comment?
Well, a good mother or any mother will tell her daughter, listen, your daddy may not be here, but you know, um, she's going to try to influence that child. But that's that exactly what you say there. It's true that even though you may be educated in the fact that your dad wasn't there, and you shouldn't go out and look for that. Women build up, young girls especially, they build an ideal in their mind of who their ideal man is, and that ideal man usually is their father, is based on who they see as a father. And to continue that, they go out looking for somebody who they can draw the closest remembrance to. They find a familiarity there. And we've seen the scenarios, we see the statistics, and it's there to prove the fact that, yeah, when the father is missing in the home, sometimes young ladies grow up with that missing, that longing for. And when you find an older gentleman who is caring and wants to protect you and wants to provide for you, immediately you fall into that place where, oh wow, it's the wow of that father that has been missed. Yeah.
Wow. And I think that's so true. That's so true. When you don't have that father present to model that this your
Yes.
to model this is how a man should treat you,
Yes.
and or should teach you that you are of value, and this is how should be expected to be treated, and don't accept anything less. If you don't have that, it can be very challenging
Yeah.
as a woman trying to navigate, romantic relationships once you become of age, and trying to, because you don't really know what model to gravitate towards. For, and a lot of times you gravitate to what you felt like you were missing.
Yeah.
And sometimes type of is packaged wrong. It may seem packaged right at the front in the beginning, but when you unpack it, you're like, this is not looking for.
Yeah.
Control and abuse is not what I signed up for.
Yeah,
So
and that you
we have
sometimes that
to.
protection. Sorry, don't mean to jump in, but
No,
that's
no.
where dad being in the house. When that first date shows up, he knows that
Absolutely.
there's a protector. There's somebody watching
Hmm.
out for this girl. And
Hmm.
if he can get past dad, uh, then he stands a good chance of being the one. But again, usually the ones who are not any good is they're not going to get past dad. Not the first one doesn't even want to deal with dad's stare or dad's questions. And I would encourage any young lady
Hmm.
to make sure that anybody you think you're serious about having a relationship with, that they do meet your family. Especially dad being in the home or not in the home. Have them meet dad. You know, because sometimes a man can sum up another young man in 2 seconds. you know, you know what he's about. And if he's if
That's
he
right.
if he's about the wrong thing, he's going to get that look from dad, like, mm-mm.
That's right.
This is
That's
not the
right.
one.
You have the man sense. You know exactly how men think, and
Yes.
I hate to say that men and women don't think the same. We don't
No,
think the
no.
same. We think different definitely. And it's not to say it's wrong with women or something's wrong with men, and we're not intelligent, independent beings. But there's a different way that we think and interpret things.
Yeah.
And I've realized over the years the value in getting a man's perspective, and not just getting the perspective, actually, because there's times where I
That's good.
receive
You
the
can get it, but if
perspective.
you don't listen to it, yeah,
That's right, and
that's
I rejected it
yeah,
outright. So, so
yeah,
that the transformation and the power is in listening to it and taking heed to it.
yeah.
Another viewer wrote in another scenario: growing up with an adopted father who believed we needed to be strong and not rely on a man, but be able to do anything a man could do. This seemed good when we were young, but
You
well, I'm
need
gonna
it.
get there.
I can almost tell
But
how that's going to finish.
when we became a problem, we were strong
Yes.
women, and it gave us problems with our husbands who want submissive women. Must be a cultural thing. This is a loaded question. I'm past it. I'm putting it on you.
Well, I'll gladly take it on because, as a pastor, you'll always hear me teaching in Bible study and preaching from the pulpit the importance of the leadership of the man in the home. And also, just as the word of God says, that the woman would submit herself to her own husband, and also that that man should love his wife like Christ loves the church. Even gave his life for the church, right? So, with that being said, it's important that as you're teaching your daughters how to be independent women, that you don't set them up for that trap of thinking that they don't need a man. I don't think the intention there is not to need a man. I think the intention should be that she is independent and can stand on her own qualities, her own just being able to provide for herself if she's out there. I think any father is concerned if when she grows up and decides to leave home on her own, gets her first place, will she be able to pay her rent? Will she be able to have food on her table? We're living now in a time where we have the women's lib, and we have a lot more women in the workplace. Women aren't home waiting, for a man to come and marry them. Women are out there, they're high achievers, they're making up their mark, they're making their imprint, they're leaving their imprint on society. But at the same time, the original plan of God is still true. That a man should leave his home, his mother, his father, find that woman and cleave to that woman, and they both cleave to each other and they become one. Is marriage for everyone? I would hope so, but it doesn't seem like it always works out that way. There's some who are single and single for life, and there's some who find love and get married, and some make mistakes in choices. It's just life. It's how life happens. But to say you don't need a man when God made you a woman, he made male and he made female, and he made them um, to come together, and it's wonderful being a man, and also it's wonderful being a female. Most females you talk to, they 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 want to know. So because I'm female, I can't do this. What makes me different? Well, the sexes made us different. How God made us. Our our makeup is what makes us different. But differences coming together makes us unique and makes a great picture. You see, I love my wife, and I remember when I was single, I always thought that God, where is that woman for me? That one for me. And I thank God for when He gave me my lovely wife. It. Someone, I think it was Miles Monroe, who says, "A woman makes a man manly." And I can see
Hmm.
that. See that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we have a lot of viewers chatting in things. I really think when you start, opening up the Pandora's box of fatherhood and the lack thereof and how it affects boys and girls growing up, it really just really opens up just a whole lot of thoughts, questions, and pain. And a viewer here says, I believe women say they don't need men as a defense mechanism.
Right,
That's interesting.
right, right.
Um, I don't know if they're on that or not.
Well, well, you have to understand, as far as defense, what is she defending from? What is her defense? You know, does she feel as though she's got the wrong man and she can't trust him in submitting herself to him? Is it a person who's going to abuse the God given privilege that he has to lead his family and to provide for them and to care for them? And is there something she knows that she has not really come to grips with? That maybe this is the wrong man, you know
Mhm.
there is no defense against your that person who is there to spiritually lead you and provide for you and protect you and care for you, which really is loving you like Christ loved the church. What is the
Mhm.
defense? Fall, just fall in love. Just give in to the care and the nurturing. There's a young lady right now who's saying, I'm ready for Mr. Right. I'm ready for that man to give myself to completely, in holy matrimony. We should, again, if we talk about fatherhood, you know, um, fathers, there's children who have fathers who are not their biological father, but they see that person as a father even over their biological father because this father has protected them and given them a freedom, a liberty to be who they've always been, who they feel inside. When you feel like as a child or whoever who has a father, in front of your father, you can just be yourself. When my dad was here, when I, no matter where I went, when I got around dad, I was his son, his young son. No matter the young man that I grew into, when I got around him, I could just be myself. He knew me better than I almost knew myself. And there were things. Sometimes I talked to my dad because I wanted to know, some things that he had seen in me as a child. The things that I may be missing now, and those moments with dad was awesome. It was wonderful. You know. So
Mhm.
just give in to lead. If there's defense, there may be a good reason for her putting up defense. If a lady is putting up defense, she's not fully trusting that relationship,
Mhm.
and we got to get to the source of why.
I think that's a really good point that you raise. Is and it's kind of big. Other questions is like,
Yeah.
well, if she's defensive, but why? What
Why?
is there to defend? What is going on? And so that does beg a lot of questions. And I really think all of it. And I want to thank all of our viewers in and really making this conversation this really robust. And I think it's so important to empower fathers and empower them because as we can see, the impact is lasting. The impact continues not only to their children, but how their
Right.
children raise their own children, and then it continues. And so it's so important when we bring up fatherhood and leadership legacy because this truly is powerful to impact
Yes.
across generations, and it makes an impact and an imprint for faith in
Yes.
the role of spirituality and faith in the home. And so it sounds like, I didn't know your father personally, but he sounds like he was a wonderful man. And sound what you will say, quote
He
unquote, a
wasn't
good
perfect,
man.
but he was wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And no one's perfect. No one's
Yeah.
perfect. But it's so we know there are good fathers. So is there such a
Yes.
thing as a bad father? can you speak to what is a bad father? Can we even
Um,
use that term?
oh yeah, yeah. Some years ago, I was in a clergy meeting, and it was like a leadership meeting. And as we shared about, you know, fatherhood and stuff in that meeting, I talked about my father, you know, and had a good relationship with my dad. It wasn't a perfect relationship, but it was a good relationship. Um, but what ended up happening was I looked at the group and I said, you know what I mean? And one of my co-laborers, a brother minister in the gospel, just said to me, no, I don't know what you mean. He said, you know, I never knew my dad. And what I know about my dad was not good. He didn't care for us. As a matter of fact, he didn't want to be around us.
Mm,
So I guess when we talk about what it means to be a father, a good father, and what it means, then the opposite of that would be a bad father, right? One that does not provide for his
mhm,
house, one that does not protect his house, one that does not care for his children, or care for his house. Yeah. So, fathers you run to, a bad father you're trying to get away from, because
mhm,
um, it's one of those things where the Bible talks about that good man, that good man, and that good man that leaves an inheritance for his children and for their children. So if you're thinking about um, a bad father, that bad man, he's probably taking from his children. He's taking
mhm,
from them. He's not there for them. He's absent. And when we talk about absent, I'm talking about you can't call him. You can't depend on him. you know you can't trust him. You can't find him. That is just absent, not there, you know not
mhm.
existing. So that's pretty bad.
You know, and I think it's so important that you define the parameters, because I think it's one thing to be trying,
Mm,
trying to be there, trying to do what you can, even if you're not actually in the home,
yeah,
and you're co-parenting, or you're not actually in the you're not the primary custodial parent, or maybe you are, but you're
right,
trying, just being there, doing what you can. And I think the distinction between that, trying and failing, or maybe you didn't miss miss the mark on that one, than just being completely absent,
mm,
and not being there. And then I think it's also important to bring up that you can be a father that's physically in the home,
right,
but spiritually and emotionally absent from your role and from your
absent,
home. And so
absent,
I
yeah,
think that is just as damaging, and if not confusing, because if you think,
yeah,
oh, my dad is in the home with me, I see him, but the soul who he is not here. He's
right,
somewhere else. Something else got his attention, whether it be work, friends,
uh,
whatever, fill in the blank. But it's not you in the home. So
yes.
that's something too.
And that's why we can't define that good man or that good father as him just being home. He needs to be more than just being in the house or in the home. He has to provide. He has to protect the house. He's got to protect your emotions, protect your future. He has to
Hmm.
be there for you. Good days, bad days. He's just got to be there when you say dad or father, that he would be there for you, and the name to call, you know yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what I think is so important, because here on the play about restoration,
Okay.
and about we don't want to leave anybody. I don't want to leave anybody at the foot or their issues, and he's saying, "Oh gosh, I messed up," or and talking about it. But there is restoration, and I think that's what's so powerful
Yeah.
about the about Christianity, and the faith that's laid out and explained in our doctrine in the Holy Bible. There's restoration, and there's a but. There's always
Yeah.
a but. It's like, hey, this didn't work out, or maybe you weren't the best father, maybe you were a bad father, or you
Right.
tried and you failed, but healing, but restoration.
Yes.
So what
Amen.
do you think for those men out there who, what you would say, absent? They're not there. Whether you're in the home and your soul is missing from the home, or you completely not in the home at all. You don't even know your children. You haven't communicated with them in years, acknowledge them. Whatever your situation is, and anywhere in between, where do you go? What are your first steps to healing? And kind of reclaim what you've lost as a father.
Well, one of the great things about men is that we should never be afraid, or we're never afraid to say that I was wrong, or say that I'm sorry, you know. And I think that's where it starts from. A man admitting his faults and accepting where he went wrong, and start there. Start with saying sorry. Let a child know it had nothing to do with them. This is purely your evolution, your character flaw, and you want to make amends. And if you totally repented of this, then be consistent now in being present. Be consistent in being present. As even if the child doesn't want you there, let when they look over their shoulder, you're there. You're there. Be
Mhm.
present. Yes, that's a great place
Yes,
to
and I
start.
yes, and I feel for you fathers out there, dads, coming, and you're staring yourself in the mirror and really having to and your own truth where you feel fallen, and didn't measure up, and that's a tough thing to do for a woman or a man,
Yeah.
for that to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I failed, I messed up,
Messed up.
and own that. And I think it takes quite a bit of resolve. And I want to celebrate of you who are in that process of restoration. And we know Father's Day is right around and it can be a very challenging time for a lot of people. Around Father's Day, it can be like we're celebrating like husband. Wow, pastor's father. Wow, it's been a long day.
Uh,
Pastor's where he was,
uh,
wonderful and wonderful memories. And then you have others.
yes.
It's like, wow, I never knew my dad. I
Yeah.
celebrate my mother on Father's Day,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I celebrate my grandfather, or
Well,
whoever that what person
well,
was for
well,
you.
well, may I just hop in there for a moment, because you know,
Yes,
listen,
exactly.
Mother's Day is Mother's Day. We celebrate mothers, and that's awesome. That's awesome. But I think one of the misconceptions, the same way we try to teach, we talked about on this discussion that a woman, she needs a man at some point in her life. And but needing a man doesn't stop you from being independent, and it shouldn't be. You need a man should not stop you from being happy and having a good life. A need, a requirement, that's defined by the individual. How much emphasis you place there. But also, just as we said, that that home needs a father. you know and we don't want to go to say that women can be fathers, because women can't be fathers.
Mhm.
They can provide their love. They can give their love to their child, even overly love their child. They can protect their child as much as they can do all those things. But at the same time, that's just her being a mother. That's her being a good
Mhm.
mother. You know, a father
Mhm.
is defined by who God has made that man to be in that child's life. You know, and so no matter how good a mother that mother has been, you know, when a lady goes out looking for a man, she's not looking for her mother. She's looking for that person, that ideal man that she's put in her head, that, you know, a man ought to be, you know, this protector. This man ought to be, you know, this spiritual leader for his home. You know, so you know, I know by culture sometimes, you know, we have a definition for man that is different across culture lines. You know, there are some places where, you know, the man is not as vocal in the house, you know, and in some cultures the man is very vocal. He's very vocal. And then when you have the mixing of cultures, then that's where now we have to, you know, understand how our cultures mix. But you know, but we also have to think about sexes, male and female. You know, we don't look at a man and call him a mother. You know, oh, he's a great mother. No, he's a great father. You know, and the same thing with a mother. She's a great
Mhm.
mother. She provides for her children whatever they need, and the father does the same. You know, so I don't get into those things where we say, oh, you know, on Father's Day we're going to celebrate. Um, you know, we have a bunch of mothers standing up. Oh, I'm the father. No, you're not the father. You are the mother. You know, God says, I will be the father for the fatherless. You know,
Mhm.
so if anything, you know, give that child to God. God, be my child's father, will you? Amen. Bless God. I feel like
Amen.
preaching.
And you know, and well, you wouldn't be passive. You weren't trying to preach.
I know, right?
Um,
Well,
you know, but I think it's so important that you say that, and you know, and if you don't agree with it, you don't like it, we certainly want to hear
that's
from
okay.
you. That it's important to make that, and you know, you're right. It is okay, and it's important you make that bold stand that a mother is not a father. And I've seen it
He's not.
done. Was like, well, I'm honoring my mom. My dad wasn't there. She was the mother and the father, and I've
Mhm.
you know heard men and women say that. I mean, genuinely believe, and I think it's coming from a genuine place where they, you know, really
Yeah,
want to honor their parent.
yeah, yes.
But inherent in that statement, there's some ignorance there. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, not quite.
Not
You're not
quite.
acknowledging that there is a such thing. It is an office
Yes,
of fatherhood that the mom quite hold. She can't hold that office. And so, and I know
yes,
that feels a little hurtful, but we have to, you know, embrace the truth so that we may be
yes.
able to grow and learn and elevate fatherhood and motherhood.
Excellent.
And so, thinking about that, we were able to discuss in some ways how the father leads his home, but we want to make sure that we're spending these last moments together thinking about the legacy that fathers leave. So, what kind of legacy does a father leave his children?
Well, by Miles Monroe definition, that would be land. Yeah, you know, this this land is my land. You know, but I want to say fathers leave a good name, a good name. You know, for their children. That's one thing that you can, you know, not be ashamed of who your dad is. You know, that's a great legacy um, to carry that name, you know, through. And the name is not just a name; it stands for who you are. It stands for your core, you know, because dad was this person who, you know, had such an impact in your life. Another great legacy. I remember as children, I always, you know, was amazed at how my dad was, you know, my sisters and brothers, they had great memories of my mom and they could tell me stories of my mother. Um, but as a young child, my mother was a help in the United States of America, so she wasn't there. But I thank God for my mother, because I'm here today because she came ahead, and she was the one who brought her whole family here, including my dad. My dad would used to come and go, but the legacy of my father is definitely a part of my faith. The God he believed in is the God he taught me about, and I heard him pray and to God that his children would live to pass the worst. I learned to pray by hearing my father pray. I learned how to care for your family and your brothers and your sisters by how my father cared for us and held us accountable to looking out for each other. And so, just as the word of God says, when you train up a child in the way they should go, when they get old, they shall not depart from it. And I wasn't, the perfect child, but I thank God that as I got older, I just as the word of God says, I have not departed from what God, my father, taught me. And I thank God for him giving me or introducing me to having a relationship with Jesus Christ, which has changed my life completely. Bless God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's so well said about the legacy that a father leaves a child and the children. And you are certainly were able to speak about the legacy your father, of course, left you, and then
Yes.
you're walking in his footsteps that he lived for
Amen.
you, an example of
Amen.
the life that he lived, and then not that he was perfect, but he loved a perfect God, and he loved
Yeah.
children and did the best that he could. And
Yeah.
I really think that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just wanted to share this piece, and because Miles Monroe has something about that where he talks about a good legacy to leave for your children is land, real estate, because I remember growing up in Jamaica as a child, and when the babies are born, they take the navel string and that the doctors cut from the child, and it's a tradition to take it home and bury it in your yard. So when I go to Jamaica, when I go home, the home that I go to visit, that's my father's, and that's the land that he purchased with my mom, and they built a home there, and they raised their children. They also built a church on the other side.
Mhm.
But I always say, my brothers and sisters, we always say, this is where our navel string is buried. You know, and to have that place to go back. He didn't
Mhm.
sell it, he didn't lose it, he has it. It's there in the
Wow,
family. That's a legacy.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. And I think that's so powerful. Platform viewers, we've had a wonderful evening unpacking this topic, and I couldn't think of a best to unpack what it is fatherhood, leadership, and legacy than our very own district elder, Pastor Jerome McClennan, father himself, a leader, and also a man that's leaving a legacy for his but
Yes.
also for the children of God in which he's been entrusted to shepherd. And so, again, all of our viewers, if you have any other questions that you didn't get a chance to raise up or you think about it later, please email us at the platform prayertowerchurch.org. We want to hear from you. Next week, in our theme all this month of June, we're talking about men. We're celebrating men. So get excited, y'all. We're celebrating you
That's
all
good.
this month. And so we have a special tribute that we plan to air next week, Monday at 7:30. And I do want to take this moment to pause to think of how important it is to honor your father and your mother. Honor thy father and thy the days um, prolonged on the ground, which Jehovah thy God given to thee. Honor thy father that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord have given thee. And that's two different versions of the same scripture, Exodus 20:12.
Yes,
And I
Lord.
think it's so important that we honor our parents. And And what I think is so important in that, it didn't say honor good fathers and good mothers. It said honor
Uh,
fathers, honor
yes,
mothers.
God.
And so even if your
Amen.
mother or your father, month we're talking about fatherhood, they weren't perfect. Maybe they weren't around. Use this time for healing, for restoration,
Yes, God.
to take a moment to honor your father, whether he was wonderful and everything you envision a father to be, or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was absent. Maybe he hurt you really deeply. But take this moment to honor him, and you can take a moment to write a tribute to him. If you didn't even get a chance to read it or present it to him, it probably be soul transforming and changing to take that moment to honor your father. If you want to share your on the platform, we welcome you to do that. Please email us or chat us, and we will give you that information on how you can do that. And we will air your tribute. If your father is living, ask him to tune in next week on Monday. Listen to your tribute. If that feels like a little too much, I want you to share your tribute with your father. I think it will be transforming, and I think God will honor your sacrifice and your willing to word. So again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank again Pastor McClennan for
Yes, God.
not finding it too much to come and join us on the platform.
Yes, God.
And to
It's
all of
great.
you, I want to do a wonderful evening.
Yes,
God
God.
bless you all. And until we meet next week, we'll see you same time, same place. Have a good night, y'all.
Take care now.